Okay, I hope you guys can see the screen. So this is the discussion that we had yesterday, where we have Parvez who wants to communicate with Krishnaraj, and Suleiman is the agent who would get the message from Parvez and deliver it to Krishnaraj. So we are going to convert this into an implementation today at the end. Before that, we'll learn what is undercover agent, what are the two types of undercover agent, how an undercover agent can be created, what are the details that we need to understand regarding undercover agent, right? So let's go back to our designer. Now guys, if I have to create an undercover agent, so I have to go on the left hand side palette, and here we have something called events. We have to click on that. We have this undercover agent. Okay, so we can give some name. We need to give some name to this undercover agent. So there are two types of undercover agent here. You can see time elapsed and on event. One is based on time and the other is based on event. Okay, so first we are going to discuss on the time elapsed. See this very carefully because an exercise will be given to you guys on this time elapsed. Okay, today. So here I'm going to name this as okay, no space in between. Whenever you are giving a name to an undercover agent, there should not be any space in between. However big the name is, there should not be any space, and name should always start with an uppercase letter, and there should not be any space. That's it. Okay, so I have selected this drop down as time elapsed, and I've given a name time based UCA, and I click on finish. So this would create the UCA, and this is the UCA which has been created. And you guys can see here there are few details which we will be which we have to know before implementing this time elapsed UCA. Now here are different sections are there. I'll collapse all the sections. So one by one, we are going to discuss about each of the sections. Okay. So this is a common section, which you can see where you can see some name is there. You can add some documentation. It's an optional thing. It is totally up to you whether you can add some documentation or not. Coming back to the right hand side now, the first section called scheduler. Here you see the schedule type is time elapsed, which means that a time elapsed UCA is based on the event marker you see here, which is called timer. We have to configure some timer over here in this UCA so that this UCA gets triggered at that point of time. Yesterday, I was giving an example that Parvez wants to share some information to Krishnaraj, and there can be a scenario where Parvez has said, Suleiman, that you come to my place on every Sunday at 7 a.m. and get all the details and pass it to Krishnaraj, right? So this is a time elapsed UC. It is based on some time. It will be activated only when that time is reached. Okay. So how that time can be configured is very simple. We'll discuss about that at the end. Okay. Now here we have something called run now. You see here there's a button called run now. Now this button is here just for the testing purpose. I have created one UCA. Now say I have configured this UCA. We need to configure this UCA later on, which we will discuss. We need to configure the UCA both at the process 2 as well as in the process 1. Right. I mean, Suleiman has to know both the houses, right? Otherwise, he will not be able to get the message and deliver it to Krishnaraj. Similarly, UCA also needs to be configured both at the uh, sender process as well as in the receiver process. Sender process is sending the message, receiver process is receiving the message. Now, who is in between? UCA. UCA is in between, who will get the message from the sender and deliver it to the receiver, which means you can clearly understand that a UCA needs to be configured at both the end, the same UCA. Now say I am a developer. I did not configure the UCA at the sender end. I am just developing this UCA. Now I want to see whether this UCA is working properly or not. I have just configured the UCA at the receiver end. So if I need to do some testing, then I can click on this run now button and see whether I can pass the information to the receiver process or not. Which means I would need some test data as well, which will be considered as some message, right? So that test data, I can put it over here. Okay, we'll come to this again, this parameter mapping. So we are just explaining you how this run now button will work. Okay, now we come to the most important section, and this section is common. All the sections are there for the event-based UCA also, and yes, somewhat it is common to the detail section of our event-based UCA as well. Here in the detail section, the first thing that we see is queue name. Remember yesterday I was telling that whenever Suleiman will get the message from Parvez, he will keep those messages in some bag, right? So that bag is nothing but in real time it is queue. We all know what is queue. I don't want to get into those discussions again. What is queue? How a queue works? We have all learned this thing in our college days. So queue, there are two types of queue which we can configure. One is asynchronous queue and the other is synchronous queue. Okay, two types of queue are there. One is asynchronous and the other is synchronous. Asynchronous queue, how it is different than synchronous queue? Now what happens in a queue, we all know, the UCA, it will keep or it will store all the messages in the queue, right? Now, say Suleiman goes to Parvez house and gets all the messages at one go. So Parvez has said that every Sunday come to my place at 7 a.m. and get all the messages. Now, Suleiman has all the messages he has kept in the queue. Now he goes to Krishnaraj's house, and what he does, there are two ways he can deliver the message to Krishnaraj. One way is to give the message one by one. He will just pick up one cheat at a time and will deliver it to Krishnaraj. And what is the other way? Say if he has 10 messages in the bag, he will get all those 10 cheats at one go and deliver it to Krishnaraj. Now I come to a real-time example. Undercover agent has all the messages stored in the queue. Now when it comes to the receiver process to deliver the message, it can deliver the message in two ways. One is one by one, and the other is at one go, all the 10 messages will be delivered. So here is the difference between asynchronous queue and synchronous queue. If you configure asynchronous queue with a UCA, all the messages will be delivered at one go. If I'm using synchronous queue, then the message will be delivered one at a time. Okay, so this is the difference between asynchronous queue and synchronous queue. Just now. All right. So now here, what we can see here, there are mainly two different types, asynchronous and synchronous queue. Synchronous queue, there are three different synchronous queues over here. And there is definitely a reason why we have three different synchronous queue and only one asynchronous queue. If you think logically, if the undercover agent is going to the sender process to get all the messages, say there can be 100 messages, right? Now those 100 messages, it will deliver one at a time. It will not deliver at one go. So what happens if one synchronous queue one, the first one is full, then the one will be used automatically. Say synchronous queue one can store 50 messages and synchronous queue two will again store another 50 messages. This is one of the reason why we have multiple synchronous queue. Another reason, say my synchronous Q1 is down somehow, then synchronous Q2 will work. It will store the messages. So load balancing will also happen in that way. And that is the reason we have multiple synchronous queue. Why we don't have multiple asynchronous queue? Because if I am using an asynchronous queue, then I will always deliver all the messages at one go. So I don't have the problem of load balancing, right? I am just whatever messages there, say if there are 100 messages or 200 messages, I am still delivering all those 200 messages at one go. So I don't need multiple asynchronous queue. Only one asynchronous queue will work for me. Okay, so we are good with queues. Did we understand what is synchronous and what is asynchronous queue? Okay, Bharadwaj, what is asynchronous queue?
Uh, it can send all the data in a one row.
Not in one row, but in one go. I mean, all at a time it can
Hello.
deliver the message. Okay.
Hello. Yes, Rahul.
Okay. All right. So this is all about the queue name. Now coming to this attached service. Now here in the attached service, some default service or dummy service has been attached. Very similar to what we have seen before. We have seen this in typewriter also. Some dummy service is attached whenever we select items from service. Remember, going to the configuration, in the drop down we had to select items from service, items from static list, right? So whenever we select items from service, there is a dummy service which is always attached over there, right? So here also some dummy service has been attached. First, let us understand what is the work of this service. This service will just pass the information from the sender part to the receiver part. Basically, the UCA has this service attached. And if I just go and open this service, you see it has just a start event and an end event. And in the middle, it just has one sequence flow, which means I am not doing any execution over here. Whatever I'm getting as an input from the sender, I am just passing it to the receiver. We don't need any implementation over here. Okay, depends. I will not say we don't need, but it depends. Say for example, we I want say I'm getting some information say from sender, and that information say is an integer. I'm just giving an example. Say I want to convert that integer into string. That kind of coding, that kind of execution I can add over here. Or maybe simply I want to pass input to output. If I go to the variables, you see there is some default input is there, correlation key value, then correlation key value. And we have seen this earlier also. There's at times in the output variable, if we are not confident of using the same name, and if I'm using a different name over here, say out correlation key and out value, then what I need to do over here in the diagram, I will add a script and I will just assign the value from here to this new parameter. Okay, so this kind of things we do over here in this attached service. I'll show you one implementation where I'm going to use this attached service. Okay, but anyways, we can still go ahead with the default BPD event service, which is this one. If I just need to pass the information from process 1 to process 2 through this UCA, it doesn't need any execution over here. No complex coding should be here. Okay, if very simple coding, say I'm just passing the value from one parameter to another parameter, this kind of coding we should write over here, not any complex coding. Okay, variables, correlation key and value we'll discuss. We have an implementation tomorrow where I'm going to show you with the help of intermediate receiving message event. That time I'm going to explain you what is correlation key and what is the value. Okay, so let's go back to the UCA. So we know now that what this attached service will do, it will just pass the information from the sender to the receiver. Okay, now comes the next option called enabled. Whenever you create a UCA, by default, this checkbox is always enabled. What happens if I disable this? If you disable this option called enabled, then whenever you have attached, say I have attached this UCA in both the sender process as well as in the receiver process. What will happen if I disable this enable option? The UCA will not work at all. The UCA will not pick up any message. The UCA will not deliver any message. So by this we can understand we always need to enable this option, otherwise my UCA will not work. So that's the reason when I created this UCA, by default this was always enabled, right? So whenever you create a UCA, make sure that this one is always enabled, otherwise your UCA will not work. Okay, now coming to parameter mapping. Now we'll discuss more about this service. Now here guys, you see correlation key and value is there. Why it is coming? Because this attached service has been mapped over here, and if you remember, it has variables correlation key and value. That is the reason it is showing me over there that the parameter mapping is for correlation key and value respectively. Now what is the work of this parameter mapping? This parameter mapping, we first of all we never use this. When to use this? We discussed about this run now button, right? So if I want to create some test data, and if I want to see whether this UCA is really able to deliver the message to the receiver process or not, then in that case I can use this parameter mapping. I can pass some value over here directly. Okay, some kind of information which I want to say, just I want to do the testing. Say I have configured this UCA at the receiver process. Now I want to see whether this UCA can really deliver this uh, messages or not, right? So here we have correlation key and we have this value. Now this can be delivered to the receiver process. Okay, I'll give a brief uh, what to say introduction about this correlation key today. So tomorrow we'll see the implementation. So correlation key basically is a very important parameter, especially for an event based UCA. Yes, we can use this in a time based UCA also, but especially for an event based UCA implementation, this correlation key is very important. Correlation key is basically, I'll again go back to a non-technical story. Okay, so we have those two people. Where are those two people? Yeah, Parvez. So Parvez and Krishna Raj. Now Parvez and Krishna Raj, they are maintaining some key, some unique identifier. Okay, it's a kind of encryption decryption. We have learned this, right? Whenever say I have some message, I will deliver it to the source or I will deliver it to the receiver only when some unique key will match, right? So here also, say Parvez has some unique key configured, say 1 2 3 4 5 6. Similarly at Krishnaraj's end also there is a unique key. Now Suleiman, he gets a message from Parvez. He's aware of the unique key of Parvez. Now, when he's going to Krishnaraj to deliver the message, first he will check whether the correlation key is matching or not. Whenever it is matching, then only it will deliver the message to Krishnaraj. Otherwise, it will not deliver the message. Okay. So same concept is there in our IBM BPM for UCA. So there is some correlation key which we need to configure at both the process 1 as well as process 2. When the UCA will go to process 1 to pick up the message, it will also check what is the correlation key that process 1 has. Now when it comes to the process 2, It will check whether it has the same correlation key as process 1 or not. If the correlation key value matches, then only the message will be delivered to Krishnaraj, otherwise it will not be delivered. Say here the correlation key is 12357 and here it is 12356, which means the message will never be delivered. Okay, so this concept we'll see tomorrow, because on event based UCA we have this concept, and nearly in every BPM project you will see this correlation key will be there. Okay, time based UCA we can still go without a correlation key and value, but for few scenarios for event based UCA, I will not say for few scenarios, most of the scenario for event based UCA we use correlation key. Very, very important. And something you will see that there will be a lot of interview questions also will come from this UC, especially on correlation key. What is correlation key? How does correlation key works? How it is important in sending a message and receiving a message, right? So all this kind of questions will come. So we need to understand this concepts very well. Okay. Anywhere, guys, if you face any problem, any doubt or concern, please stop me there and ask me. If I'm going too fast, please let me know right now. Then I'll slow down. Okay. All right. Okay. So,
Rahul,
yes.
can you show me like how to create the UC? Like, my video got stuck when you created
Yeah,
the
sure. So,
first step.
hmm. So here on the left hand side, you see this event option. We click
Yes,
on
sir.
this plus sign, and here we have these two options. The first option is undercover agent. Then I
Okay.
clicked on it, and then I gave a name, and here we have two different types of UCA. So I selected time elapsed, and then I went ahead.
Okay.
Okay, we'll create one more UCA today. So I'll show you the event based UCA also, because we have an implementation on event based UCA, the first implementation today. That time I'll show you once again. All right, so guys, we are good with the parameter mapping. So this is just for testing purpose. If I am mapping this UCA, if I'm configuring this UCA both at the receiver as well as in the sender process, I don't need to do any parameter mapping over here. Okay, this is just for the testing purpose for a developer. If you just need to see whether this UCA is able to call the receiver process and deliver the message over there or not, then in that case I should be using this parameter map. Else, in always in a real-time scenario, this parameter mapping should always be blank. Okay, all right. Now comes to the last part of this section. This is a very simple one. You can understand time schedule, and this time schedule is the same thing which we discussed, right? So Parvez has said Suleiman that come to my place on every month on every Sunday at 7 a.m. So those kind of configuration we have to do it over here. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have this time schedule section, and the first section is all about months. You see from January to December everything is there, right? And the next section has every first and last. The next section has we all those weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday till Sunday we have over here. We can configure it accordingly. Then we have hour, right? So whatever we have midnight, and we have till 11 p.m., which means we are covering everything. Okay, all those 24 hours. And then we have minutes, right? And we have in the multiples of 5. So on the hour, then 5 past the hour, 10 past the hour, like this we have till 55. So it's multiples of 5, right? Now if I have to configure this UCA in a way that it will be activated every Sunday at 7 a.m., so how can we configure it? Very simple. So here we have all the months. So I want to configure that every month on every Sunday at 7 a.m., this UCA will be activated. It will go to the sender process. It will get the messages and it will deliver it to the receiver process, right? So how can we configure it? Simple, select it. So I selected everything over here. Now what I want on every Sunday, right? So coming to the next section, I will select every, and here we have Monday, Tuesday, all those weekdays we have. I will select Sunday. And then what I want to configure at 7 a.m. in the morning, right? So here we have 7 a.m. and I want 7 a.m. exactly, not 7:05 or 7:10, nothing like that. So on the hour. Okay, simple. The most simplest thing in this UCA to configure the time. What we need to do, just we need to configure this UCA in both the sender as well as in the receiver process, and we just need to find out whether the message is getting transferred between these two processes at this specific time which we have configured over here, right? What you guys need to do, okay, as an exercise, very simple. Don't have to create any sender process, just create this UCA. Okay, create a process. In that process, it will be a receiver process. You have to configure the UC over there. How to configure it, I'll show it today. Okay, how to configure the UC, I'm going to show it today so that you guys can do it easily. Just pass some data over here, okay, and use the run now button and see whether you are able to pass the message to the receiver process or not. That's it. That will be the exercise. Configure the time accordingly and see whether you are able to deliver the message over there or not. Okay. Yes, somebody has a question.
This
Yes, Noor Pasha. Yeah.
want to deliver the message every second Saturday. There is option.
Your voice is not clear. Can you come again, Noor?
Rahul? Oh, okay.
You are not
Is it
clear.
okay?
No, lot of background noise is there. No problem. You can ask the question in the chat. Okay. You can ask the question in the chat. Guys, any questions you have on this time elapsed UCA, please ask me now.
Rahul?
Yes.
Hello. Rahul, this is Bharadwaj, Rahul.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, tell me. I can hear you.
Asynchronous queue means it can send or deliver the data in a one queue.
In one go. At one go,
In
it can
one
deliver
go.
all the messages. Yes.
Okay, Rahul.
Basically, what do I mean by one go? Say, for example, you went to a shop, right? And say you have a sister at home and you bought like 10 toffees for her, right? So what we can do, we can either give her one by one those toffees, or you give all those 10 toffees to her at one go. Okay. So that's a concept of asynchronous
Rahul, your
listening.
voice is breaking.
My voice is breaking. Is it clear now?
Yes.
It is clear.
Yeah, it's clear.
Yes, Rahul, it is clear now.
Okay. Okay. So Bharadwaj, you understood what is asynchronous queue?
Yes, Rahul.
Okay. Now I come to the question which Noor asked. I want to deliver the message every second Saturday. Every second Saturday. Every second Saturday. No, this cannot be done. So either you have to use the first or last second Saturday. You cannot do it. We cannot configure it in that way. Okay. So you see these options here, every, first and last. There is no second over here. Okay. So either on every Saturday I can configure, either I can configure it on the first Saturday of the month, or I can configure it at the last Saturday of the month. Okay. Noor, we are good? Yeah. Okay. Any other doubts, guys? I expect more doubts
Rahul,
from here.
difference between event-based UCA and time-based UCA. Okay.
Yeah. Parvez, this question from you, coming
Uh,
from you, is very surprising because I have given you name over here and I explained it yesterday.
Rahul,
But
like my internet got a bit unstable
yeah,
in between, so
no
I
problem.
missed few points.
No
Just a
problem.
small brief.
Yeah, no problem. So undercover agent, it can perform this message, right? It is picking up the message and delivering the message. It can do it in two ways. One way is, which I said yesterday, that Suleiman. So Parvez, you have said, Suleiman, that come to my house on every Sunday at 7 a.m. and get the messages and deliver it to process to or Krishna Raj. That is my time-based UCA. You have saved him some time, and that's how the UC has configured itself. Suleiman has configured himself in that way, right? And what is the other thing? Whenever you have some message to deliver, whenever you have some message to deliver, it can be at any point of time. Suleiman has to go to your house, get the message, and deliver it to Krishna Raj. That is event-based UC. Okay, there is no concept of configuring time for an event-based UC. It gets activated only when some message needs to be delivered. Got
Okay,
it?
Rahul.
Yeah.
Yes, Rahul.
Okay.
Rahul, which one is better in real-time scenario?
Both can be used, but I'll give you some example. How many of you have heard of this term batch? Have anyone heard of the term batch? Okay. Now you will see in many projects, okay, even in BPM project, even in my project also, wherever I'm working. So over here also we have the concept of batch running. Okay. Batch running, it happens generally on the weekend, where say 100 of messages we need to deliver from one process to another process, right? And generally this kind of implementation or this kind of execution, it happens on the weekend, not on the business hour. Okay, say there are say 100 messages from process 1 that needs to be delivered to process 2, right? So what we do generally, we create a time based UCA or a time elapsed UCA, and we configure the time over there, the scheduler, which we all saw, right? And we configure it in a way that on every, say on every weekend, say on Saturday at around say 8 a.m. or maybe 9 a.m., all those messages will be picked up from process 1 and will be delivered to process 2. Okay, these are called the batch run. You will see if you work in a real-time project, you will hear all these terms. That did the batch run in the weekend? People will say yes, the batch did run in the weekend. So they will then ask that whether all the messages or all these things have been delivered to the process 2 or not. Please go and check in the logs if anything has failed, if any messages failed or not, right? This kind of things you will see. So in those kind of scenario, we use time elapsed UCA. Now, if you ask me that which one we use mostly, we use event-based UCA. And most of your interview questions, most of your implementation will be done on the event-based UCA. And that is the reason I will show you two different implementations on event-based UCA. Today, one I will show, tomorrow another I will show. Okay. Event-based UCA is the most important. Time-elapsed UCA is also important, but it depends because there are many projects where there is no concept of batch run. There can be a scenario, but event-based UCA will always be there. If you're working in a BPM project, event-based UCA will definitely be there. Okay, so basically these two things. Okay, so we are good with time-elapsed UCA, everyone?
Rahul,
Yes.
will the UCA trigger even if there is no message? Like it
No,
will trigger every 7 a.m., right?
Yes,
if
yes. So if you're configuring time elapsed UCA, if you're configuring the scheduler, yes, at that point of time, the UCA will always be triggered and the UCA will look for some message. If it doesn't have
okay,
any message to deliver, then definitely it will not deliver.
okay,
But we configure the time always in a way that there should be some message will definitely be there. Okay, that's the reason we are configuring it in that way. Because we are
okay,
aware
Rahul.
because we are aware that at Sunday 7 a.m. there must be some message we need to deliver to process 2. Okay.
Okay, Rahul.
But your question is right. I mean, if you consider event based UCA, then the UCA will never be activated if there is no message to be delivered. Event based UCA will work in that way. It will look for a message, then only it will be activated. If there is no message at all, it will never be activated. Okay. All right. So now once again, I'll go back to our process designer. Now comes the
Rahul,
yes,
small.
yes.
Will the UCA deliver messages from the external service from another, not
No, no. Say I have a Java service. The Java service wants to trigger a BPM process. Now your question is, will the UCA can be configured to the Java service? It will pick up the message from there and deliver it to the BPM
BP?
process.
Yes.
The answer is no. It cannot do. UCA can be configured only with the BPM components.